My roommate kept telling everyone we weren't a couple, so I introduced her to my actual girlfriend. For 10 months, Emily acted like my girlfriend in every possible way. We texted every morning. She kept a toothbrush at my apartment. She left her shampoo in my shower. Every time another girl came up to talk to me at bars, she'd immediately interrupt with some random urgent question. She bought me a watch for my birthday that cost more than what most people spend on their real partners. We grocery shopped together every Sunday. We meal prepped for the entire week. She even helped me pick out the furniture for my living room. My roommate kept asking when she was finally moving in with me. My sister invited her to family dinners. Even my mom had already started calling her my future daughter-in-law. But every single time someone asked if we were dating, Emily shut it down instantly. Oh God, no, absolutely not. We're just best friends. I don't see him like that, and every single time, it crushed me. But I kept convincing myself she just needed more time. Last Saturday, that illusion finally died. We were at Ryan's housewarming party, and some guy named Brandon from her gym wouldn't leave her alone. It was painfully obvious he was interested, complimenting her outfit, offering to grab her drinks, laughing way too hard at everything she said. Then eventually, Brandon turned toward me and asked, completely straightforward,
So, are you two together or can I shoot my shot? Without hesitating for even a second, Emily laughed. Oh, please. He's basically like a brother to me. I'm single and very available. And while saying it, she lightly touched Brandon's arm. I felt humiliation rising in my throat. Ryan looked over at me. I could tell he felt secondhand embarrassment. Ethan, my roommate, even quietly muttered under his breath, "What the hell?" I felt completely humiliated in front of everybody.
but instead of leaving, something inside me suddenly clicked. I was done. Done being her emotional backup plan. I pulled out my phone and smiled calmly. You're absolutely right, Emily. We're just friends. I paused. Actually, my girlfriend just texted me. She's downstairs. I'm gonna go get her. The confident smile vanished from Emily's face immediately. Wait. What? What girlfriend? Oh, Sophie, the girl from the coffee shop. I ran down the stairs 2 at a time. My heart was pounding against my chest like I'd just run a marathon. The problem? I didn't have a girlfriend waiting downstairs. I didn't have a girlfriend at all. I had said it without thinking. The first woman who came to mind. Sophie. The girl who worked at the coffee shop on the ground floor of Ryan's building. The one I bought an Americano from every morning. When I got downstairs, I saw her through the glass. The shop lights were still on. Sophie was putting chairs up on the tables, getting ready to close. I pushed open the door without the slightest clue what I was about to say. We're closed, she said without turning around. Sophie. It's me, the Americano guy. She turned around holding a cleaning rag. She looked me up and down with that half smile I'd seen 1,000 times behind the counter. You look terrible. What happened to you? So I dumped everything on her. The party upstairs, the 10 months, Emily, Brandon flirting with her. The whole he's like a brother to me speech in front of everybody, and the stupid thing I had just done. The lie. That I supposedly had a girlfriend waiting downstairs, and that her name was Sophie. The girl from the coffee shop. When I finished talking, she stayed quiet for a second. I thought she was about to throw me out. So, let me get this straight. You dragged me into your lie without warning me first? I swear I wasn't thinking straight. I'm leaving. Sorry for... Wait. She placed the rag on the counter and started untying her apron. This Emily girl still upstairs? Yeah. And all your friends? All of them. She let her hair down, smoothed out her blouse with both hands, then grabbed her purse from under the counter. Let's go, but this is gonna cost you way more than an Americano. I didn't even have time to thank her. She turned off the lights, pulled the front shutter halfway down, then walked toward the elevator like we'd known each other for years. I followed behind her, still unable to believe what was happening. Inside the elevator, I quickly gave her the basics while the floors ticked upward. I lived with Ethan. Ryan was hosting the party. Emily and I had known each other for about a year. She listened quietly, nodding calmly, like she did this kind of thing every day. One thing, she said when the elevator was almost there. I'm not going to pretend I'm crazy about you. That stuff is obvious immediately, and it makes everything worse. I'm going to act like someone who actually knows you. That's different. You just go along with whatever I do, and don't talk too much. The elevator doors opened before I could answer. We walked in together. And I didn't have to do anything. The entire apartment suddenly went silent. Emily was standing near the kitchen counter. Brandon beside her, and the look on her face when she saw Sophie walk in with me, that was something I'll never forget. Her smile froze instantly. "Sorry I'm late," Sophie said as she placed her hand on my back so naturally that even I almost believed it. "I was closing downstairs and apparently someone wasn't answering my texts." "Yeah, I didn't know you were coming up so fast," I said, trying to keep up with her act. "I always come for you." She said it casually. No drama, no exaggeration, just smiling as she looked around at everyone watching. Ryan let out an awkward laugh and extended his hand. "Ryan, nice to meet you." Had no idea he was seeing someone. Sophie. And yeah, we are together, even though sometimes he forgets to show me off. She lightly elbowed me jokingly. Ethan was staring at me wide-eyed, like he was silently asking me what the hell was going on. I held eye contact with him for a second, then looked away before laughing. Emily finally reacted. She stepped closer using that familiar voice of hers, sweet on the outside, sharp underneath. "Well, this is unexpected. He never mentioned you. And we're really close, so how long have you two known each other?" I immediately felt my throat tighten. This was it. Everything was about to fall apart, but Sophie didn't flinch. "Oh, he never told you?" She tilted her head slightly. "Well, that doesn't surprise me. He's pretty private when it comes to personal stuff." She paused. "But one thing he did tell me a lot about was tonight." She slowly turned toward Emily. "And about this really important friend he had here." Another pause. "You're Emily, right? He's talked about you so much. I already felt like I knew you." Emily opened her mouth, then closed it again. Next to her, Brandon took a small step backward, like someone suddenly realizing they were standing in the wrong place. "Well," Brandon cleared his throat, "I'm gonna grab another beer." And just like that, he walked away. 30 minutes earlier, Emily had been touching his arm. Now he was already across the room. Emily tried again. "Well, that's nice. So what do you do, Sophie?" "I own the coffee shop downstairs, the one on the corner of this building." She said it so calmly it completely killed the energy behind the question. "Been running it for 2 years. It's mine. Why?" Emily forced a smile. "Oh, no reason. That's cool." The party slowly returned to normal. Someone turned the music back on. Ryan pulled me aside by the arm. "No idea you had a girlfriend, man. Good for you." And for the first time all night, I didn't feel like people were pitying me. We stayed another 20 minutes. Sophie talked with Ethan, with Ryan, with random people I barely even knew, and she did it like she'd been part of my life for years. I kept watching her from the corner of my eye, still unable to understand where she got that kind of confidence. Emily stayed far away, in one corner, looking down at her phone. Brandon nowhere near her anymore. When we finally left, the cool night air felt refreshing after being packed inside with so many people. Sophie exhaled deeply, then laughed, a real laugh. Different from the one she'd been using upstairs. "Wow. Your friend Emily is something else." "You have no idea." I ran a hand down my face. "Seriously, thank you. I have no idea how to repay you. I already told you how." She leaned against the closed coffee shop shutter. "You owe me an actual coffee. A real one. Sitting down. Not that watered-down Americano you chug every morning while rushing out without even properly looking at me." I stared at her. I'd been buying coffee from her for months, and this was the first time I'd ever seen her outside that counter. Hair down, no apron. "Tomorrow?" I asked before thinking. Sophie raised an amused eyebrow. "For someone who used me as an emergency fake girlfriend 30 minutes ago, you move fast." "It's just," I froze. She smirked. "It's just nothing. Tomorrow. One coffee, wherever you want." She stared at me for a moment, like she was measuring me, then smiled. A real smile this time, not for anyone else. "Fine, tomorrow. But I'm choosing the place. Your coffee tastes terrible." Then she turned around and started walking toward the corner, and I stood there on the sidewalk, heart racing again. But this time, for a completely different reason. What had started as a desperate lie to avoid being humiliated in front of Emily suddenly felt like the most real thing that had happened to me in a very long time. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's frozen expression when Sophie walked into that apartment with me. But strangely, I wasn't really thinking about Emily. I was thinking about Sophie letting her hair down behind the counter. About the way she casually said, "Your coffee tastes terrible," without the slightest bit of hesitation. At 7 in the morning, I already had 3 texts from Emily. "We need to talk. It's weird that you hid something like this from me for 10 months. Are you seriously dating the coffee girl? Since when?" I left them on read. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel that usual urge to answer immediately, to calm her down, to make sure she wasn't upset with me. I flipped my phone face down and got in the shower. Sophie had texted me the night before. One single message. "Tomorrow, 5 p.m. I'll send you the address. Don't be late." I close early on Sundays. No emojis, no filler. I liked that. The place she chose wasn't one of those trendy Instagram coffee shops. It was a tiny family-owned diner about 6 blocks from her cafe. Plastic chairs, old ceiling fan making noise overhead. When I got there, she was already sitting there. No apron, yellow blouse, hair down again. "I thought you were taking me to your own coffee shop," I said as I sat down. "Absolutely not. After closing, I don't even want to smell that place." She waved toward the older man behind the counter. "They make the best cinnamon coffee in the entire neighborhood. That's real coffee. Not the dark water I sell you every morning." I laughed. And somehow, laughing with her felt different. With Emily, I was always measuring every word, trying to calculate if I was about to annoy her, wondering if she'd misinterpret something. With Sophie, I didn't have to calculate anything. A few moments later, they brought us 2 steaming mugs. The smell of cinnamon and brown sugar filled the air. "Well," she said while blowing across the top of her cup, "start from the beginning. Because yesterday, you dragged me into what felt like a soap opera, and I still don't understand the characters." So I told her everything. From the very beginning, the 10 months, Emily's toothbrush in my bathroom, the expensive watch she bought me, how she got jealous whenever other women approached me, yet told everyone I was basically her brother, how my mom already called her daughter-in-law, and how I had clung to all of that like an idiot. Sophie listened quietly, stirring her coffee slowly. Then finally she asked, "So, you never said anything? You never directly asked her what you two were?" "One time. About 5 months ago. I told her I felt something more." She laughed and said I shouldn't ruin our friendship with weird feelings, so I stayed quiet. "And kept staying." Sophie shook her head. "Oh no, you know what you were to her? The backup plan, the safe option. The guy who'd always stay there while she figured out if she could find something better. She kept you on reserve." Her words hit me hard, not because they hurt, because they were exactly what I'd spent 10 months avoiding. "How do you know all that?" I asked. She took a sip. "Because I did the exact same thing once, but from the other side. Because I had a boyfriend like that once." She took another slow sip of coffee. "He was with me. But whenever it suited him, he introduced me as just a friend. I put up with that for 2 years before I finally got tired of it." She stared into her mug for a second. "So yesterday, when you told me everything, I didn't even have to think about it. I knew exactly what it felt like to stand where you were standing. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The old ceiling fan kept rattling above us. "Hey, thanks again," I said quietly. "Seriously. You barely knew me, and you still came upstairs to save me." She smiled sideways. "I know more about you than you think." "What?" "Americano, no sugar, always in a rush. Always staring at your phone. You come in at exactly 7:40 every morning. You order. You tap your card. You leave without even looking around." She pointed at me. "You've been doing that for months." I laughed. "I thought you never noticed me." "Oh, I noticed you. I thought you were one of those miserable office guys who hate life. And now?" She raised one eyebrow. "Haven't decided yet." "But a miserable office guy doesn't run downstairs 2 floors in panic asking the coffee girl to pretend she's his girlfriend." That part was entertaining. We stayed there almost 3 hours. We talked about her coffee shop, how she opened it by herself 2 years earlier after leaving that ex-boyfriend, the loans she was still paying off, her mom back in Dallas. I told her about my job, about Ethan, about my family, and for the entire time, nothing felt forced. Not once did I have to fill awkward silence. By the time we left, it was already dark outside. I offered to walk her to her car. "This doesn't count as the coffee you owed me," she said before opening the door. "This was my idea." The one you owe me is still pending, I smiled. So there's gonna be another one? She paused, pretending to think about it. Maybe. If you stop ordering Americanos and learn how to drink real coffee. Then she got in the car and drove away. And once again, I found myself standing on a sidewalk watching her leave. Same strange feeling in my chest as the night before. When I got back to my apartment, Ethan was sitting on the couch drinking a beer. We need to talk, he said the second I walked in. My stomach tightened. What happened? Emily texted me like 10 times today. Of course she did. What did she want? To know everything about Sophie. How long you've been dating. If it's serious, if you'd mentioned her before. He took another sip. I told her I didn't know anything. Then he looked at me seriously. But dude, she's acting weird. She asked me if this whole thing was staged. She said it's way too suspicious that you suddenly had a hidden girlfriend the exact same night all that party stuff happened. I sat down slowly. Of course Emily thought that. To her, it was impossible someone might choose me without there being some kind of trick behind it. What did you tell her? Nothing. I told her to ask you. He stared at me. But I know you. Yesterday morning you did not have a girlfriend. I literally live with you. So, what exactly is happening with Sophie? I stared at the beer bottle in his hand. I had no idea how to explain it, how something that had started as a panic lie had suddenly become the only thing in months that actually felt real. I don't know exactly what's happening, I admitted, but I'm gonna figure it out. And whatever it is, it's none of Emily's business. Ethan raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything else. That night, for the first time in months, I turned my phone off without checking whether Emily had texted again. The next few weeks completely changed my routine. Before, I used to stop by Sophie's coffee shop at 7:40, grab my Americano, leave without looking up. Now, I started showing up 15 minutes early. I'd stand at the counter talking to her while she opened. Some nights I stayed after closing and helped stack chairs. We went out 3 more times. Always places she picked. Always real coffee, and slowly, what had started as a panic lie stopped feeling like a lie. It started feeling like the only solid thing in my life. Emily couldn't stand it. I learned that through Ryan. Hey, Ryan told me one afternoon over the phone, I'm telling you this because we're friends. Emily's been asking about you with basically everyone. Asking what? Sophie, when you guys started dating. She's interrogating half the friend group. She asked me 3 times whether I knew you had a girlfriend before the party. I stayed quiet. Not surprised at all. Let her ask, I finally said. She can do whatever she wants. It's more than that. She thinks it's way too convenient that your girlfriend magically appeared that exact night. She's telling people you made the whole thing up and paid the coffee girl to play along. I let out a dry laugh. The funny part, that version was almost true. Almost. Except Sophie didn't do it for money, and everything after that night was completely real. Let her believe whatever she wants. I don't owe her explanations, but Emily didn't stop with questions. 2 days later, Sophie told me Emily had gone to the coffee shop. A girl came in yesterday afternoon, Sophie said while cleaning the espresso machine, well dressed. She sat at the corner table for almost an hour, ordered coffee. Barely touched it. Just kept staring at me, my whole body tensed. Brown hair, shoulder length. Sweet voice, that one? She nodded. At the end, she walked up to the counter and asked if I was Sophie. I said yes. And then she hit me with, so you're the girl dating him? Like she was challenging me. I clenched my jaw. What did you say? Sophie crossed her arms, clearly amused. I said, yep, that's me. Need anything else, or did you just come here to stare at my face? She turned bright red. And left, no tip. I laughed, but underneath, I felt something unexpected, the urge to protect her. Emily was stepping into territory that wasn't hers, and the person she was bothering now wasn't me. Sorry, I said. This whole mess is my fault. You shouldn't be dealing with my ex because of me. She raised an eyebrow. Your ex? I thought you said you two never dated. I sighed. We didn't. That's the problem. 10 months acting like my girlfriend, while constantly telling everyone we were just friends. So, honestly, I don't care what she says now. Sophie stayed quiet for a second, then looked directly at me. You know what actually bothers her? Not that you have a girlfriend. It bothers her that you have one, and suddenly, you don't need her anymore. As long as you stayed there waiting, she had control. Now, she has nothing. She was right, and the deeper Emily dug trying to expose the lie, the more she buried herself. Because every time she asked someone about Sophie, someone told me. And every time someone told me, I went straight to Sophie. And we laughed about it together. The thing Emily wanted to destroy, she was accidentally building herself. That same week, Emily finally called me. I'd ignored her texts for days. So she changed strategy. I saw her name on the screen. And for the first time, I didn't feel that familiar knot in my stomach. I answered. Well, look who finally answers. Her voice. The same one I'd memorized over months. I need to talk to you. In person, like the friends we are. I stared ahead. I'm busy, Emily. It's important. Look. I know you're hurt because of what happened at the party, and I get that. But you don't have to invent a girlfriend just to impress me. I know you. There it was, what she really believed. There it is. What she really believed. Emily, I didn't invent anything. Oh, please. The coffee girl? Seriously? You just happened to meet her that same night? Even Ethan said you didn't have a girlfriend that morning. Ethan doesn't know everything about my life. I kept my voice calm. You know what? I honestly don't care whether you believe me or not. That's the difference. What difference? I exhaled slowly. For months? I spent all my time worrying about what you thought of me, trying to make sure you saw me the right way, trying to make sure you didn't get upset, trying to stay exactly where you wanted me. I paused. I don't do that anymore. Silence. Long silence. Then finally. I don't recognize you. And for the first time, her voice sounded uncertain. I leaned back against the wall. Yeah. I don't recognize the guy I used to be either. The one following you around like some lost puppy. That version of me is gone. I hung up before she could answer. Then I stared at the phone, waiting for the guilt. That old familiar guilt I always felt whenever I set boundaries with Emily. It never came. Instead, I felt light. Like finally taking off a backpack you'd been carrying so long you forgot how heavy it was. That night I went to Sophie's coffee shop right before closing. She was pulling down the front shutter. I told her everything about the phone call. And how did it feel? She asked. I thought for a second. Strange, but good. I don't know. I spent almost a year feeling miserable every time I talked to her. Tonight, I didn't. Sophie finished locking the door, then turned toward me. You want to know something? What? The night you ran downstairs asking me to pretend, I thought you were pathetic. I stared at her. She laughed. Wow, that's nice. Let me finish. She smiled. I honestly felt bad for you. That's why I helped. I folded my arms. Great. Love hearing that. She kept smiling. But you don't make me feel bad anymore. The guy who called me today, the guy who finally stood up to his ex, he's not the same guy who came downstairs shaking and begging me for help. She stepped a little closer. I liked this version better. I had absolutely no idea what to say. So instead, I did the only thing that came to mind. I leaned in and kissed her, right there on the sidewalk, with the coffee shop shutter half closed behind us, cars passing in the street, warm summer air all around us. She didn't pull away, and when we finally separated, she stayed quiet for a second, which almost never happened. That definitely wasn't part of the deal. Her voice was softer now. I smiled. Yeah. I know. I guess I owe you something else now. While Emily kept trying to prove everything was fake, the fake thing had already become the most real part of my life. 3 weeks later, it was Ryan's birthday. He threw a barbecue at his house. The whole friend group was coming. I honestly didn't want to go. I knew Emily would be there, but Sophie didn't hesitate for even a second. We're going. She said it like there was no debate. We've been dating for months now. I want to meet your friends without pretending this time. What we didn't know was that Emily had been preparing something. I only found out later through Ryan. Apparently, she had spent days telling half the friend group to pay attention. She claimed she had proof Sophie was fake, that I had paid her to pretend. She wanted to expose everything in front of everyone. She had turned Ryan's birthday barbecue into her own personal stage. We got there around 2 in the afternoon. Ryan's backyard was packed, music playing. The smell of grilled burgers and steak everywhere. As soon as Sophie and I walked in holding hands, I noticed people staring, but not the same way they stared at that party weeks earlier. Not pity. Something different. Curiosity. Expectation. Emily was sitting at one of the patio tables, and right beside her, Brandon again. Along with two of her friends, the second she saw us, she sat up straight. She didn't waste time. The moment Sophie set her purse down on a chair, Emily walked over smiling way too hard, holding a glass of wine. "Sophie, so glad you came." She turned toward the girls beside her, making sure everyone was listening. "I was actually just telling them about you." Then she looked back at Sophie. "You know, I've been wondering something. You said you own that coffee shop in Ryan's building, right? The one downstairs?" Sophie nodded calmly. "Yep." Emily smiled wider. "That's weird." "Because I go to that building pretty often, and I've never seen you there. And I have a pretty good memory for faces." She took a sip of wine. "So, you sure it's your coffee shop? Or do you just work there sometimes?" The entire backyard suddenly got quieter. A couple people moved closer, pretending they were grabbing drinks. I felt heat rushing through my body. I was about to step in, but Sophie casually touched my arm without looking at me, a silent signal. Stay quiet, she had this. Then she smiled politely. "Well, I'm glad you asked. My shop is called Corner Brew. I opened it 2 years and 4 months ago. It's legally registered under my name, Sophie Carter. You can literally check the city permit online if you'd like. I open at 6:30 a.m., close at 8 p.m., Sundays at 5. Then she paused, and her smile changed. Still polite, but sharper. "And honestly, I'm not surprised you never noticed me. People who are always in a hurry usually don't pay attention to who serves their coffee." Another pause. "Kind of like how nobody noticed him either." She tilted her head toward me. 10 months, right?" Someone nearby quietly muttered, "Damn." One of Emily's friends covered her mouth. Emily blinked. She hadn't expected Sophie to hit back. "I don't know what you're talking about," Emily said quickly. "I'm just saying, it's awfully convenient that you suddenly appeared the exact night he decided to put on his little show." Sophie nodded. "You're right, it was convenient." And now, she wasn't smiling politely anymore. She was smiling for real. At me. For months. I watched him walk into my shop every morning looking exhausted, ordering the same thing, talking to nobody. I thought he was miserable. That night, he came downstairs completely broken because of something you did. She stepped closer. And that's when I actually got to know him. So yeah, very convenient. She paused. "Honestly, I should probably thank you." Complete silence. Even Brandon next to Emily was staring down at his beer looking uncomfortable. The two girls exchanged awkward looks. Emily wasn't done yet. She lowered her voice, trying to sound calm, but still loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look, don't take this the wrong way, but I've known him for over a year. I know how he is. He's the kind of guy who gets attached too fast because he's terrified of being alone." She looked directly at Sophie. "I'm just saying, woman to woman, don't fall for someone who's only using you to get over me." And right there, everything collapsed because she said it in front of everyone, to get over me. After 10 straight months insisting we were just friends, Sophie stared at her. Long silence. Then, instead of getting angry, she did something nobody expected. She spoke softly, almost sympathetically. "Emily, I don't know what happened between you two. And honestly, I don't care. But I'll tell you something respectfully. That version of him you want me to believe in, the insecure guy who clings to people, that's exactly the version of him you needed him to be, so you could keep him waiting around for 10 months. She folded her arms. "He isn't that person anymore, and that..." She leaned slightly closer. "That's what actually bothers you." "Not me." Emily opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Emily opened her mouth. But nothing came out. Sophie kept going, still calm. "And one more thing. Next time you come sit in my coffee shop for an hour pretending to drink coffee while staring at me," she smiled, "just talk to me. I make a pretty good cappuccino." House special. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then someone suddenly laughed. Then another person joined, and just like that, the entire tension in the backyard disappeared. Suddenly, Emily was standing there alone, glass of wine in hand. No one on her side. Even Brandon quietly stood up. I'm gonna go grab more ice, and he never came back to her table. Ryan walked over carrying 2 beers. He handed one to me and leaned close. Dude, your girlfriend is terrifying, he laughed. Good for you. Seriously. That afternoon, no one questioned Sophie again. What Emily had planned as a public humiliation ended up making her look like the liar. We spent the rest of the barbecue laughing, eating, talking with everyone, and somehow Sophie blended in like she'd been part of our group forever. When we finally left later that night, she squeezed my hand inside the car. Did I do okay? She looked ahead at the road. I promised myself I wouldn't lose my temper. I smiled. You were perfect. You didn't even have to raise your voice. She leaned back in the seat. People who are right don't need to scream. And she was right. Emily had wanted to prove what we had was fake. Instead, all she proved was exactly who she was. After Ryan's barbecue, something broke inside our friend group, and it wasn't on my side. Emily couldn't let it go. For someone used to always being the center of attention, being embarrassed in front of everyone was too much. She started sending long messages in the group chat, explaining why Sophie rubbed her the wrong way, why she was concerned about me dating someone I barely knew. Nobody entertained it. Ryan finally answered once. Emily, let it go. He's fine. After that, everyone just left her messages on read. Brandon was the first to disappear completely. Ryan told me himself. She called Brandon like 5 times last week, tried asking him out. Movie nights, normal stuff. But Brandon figured her out. I stayed quiet while listening. Ryan continued. He told one of the guys. That night at the party, he realized she was only using him to make you jealous. And then at the barbecue, she basically abandoned him to fight with you and Sophie. He got tired of it. He stopped answering her. I thought about that for a second. 10 months earlier, that information would have meant everything to me. I would have treated it like proof. Proof that deep down Emily actually cared about me. That she was just confused. I probably would have found some excuse to give her another chance. Now, I felt absolutely nothing. No resentment, no satisfaction, nothing. Just distance. Because my life had moved somewhere else. I was spending almost every afternoon at Sophie's coffee shop. I learned how to use the espresso machine, how to steam milk properly, how to tell when coffee beans were over-roasted. On weekends, I stayed and helped whenever the place got crowded. I started helping with finances, too. Numbers were always my thing, and Sophie was drowning trying to keep up with the business loans. You really don't have to do this, she told me one Sunday, while I sat behind the counter reviewing monthly revenue on her laptop. I didn't look up. I know, I want to. I turned the screen toward her. Look at this. You're losing money in the afternoons. Between 4 and 6, hardly anyone comes in. I pointed at the chart. If you run a half-price coffee special during those hours, you'll pull in employees from those office buildings across the street when they come out on break. Sophie stared at the numbers, then looked at me. You realize you've been running my business for like 3 months now. I grinned. Does that bother you? She smiled slowly. That's the weird part. What? It doesn't. She closed the laptop, then leaned against the counter. My ex never asked me anything about the coffee shop. He thought it was boring. He said I spent too much time talking about coffee beans and spreadsheets. She stared at me for a second. You show up. And instead of getting bored, you start optimizing my business schedule. She shook her head, laughing softly. I don't even know when having you here became normal. I looked at her. Guess we're both wondering the same thing. Things with Sophie were simple. And that was new for me. I didn't have to guess what she was thinking. I didn't have to act a certain way to keep her around. If something bothered her, she told me. If something bothered me, she listened. After spending a year swallowing every feeling I had around Emily, that kind of honesty felt almost strange. My mom noticed it first. One Sunday I went over for lunch. She was serving rice when she suddenly stopped and looked at me. You look different. I looked up. How? She shrugged. I don't know. Calmer. I smiled. I'm doing good, Mom. She kept serving food. And Emily? You stopped bringing her around. She laughed lightly. I already started calling her my daughter-in-law. I shook my head. Emily was never my girlfriend. That whole thing... was just me fooling myself. She always said we were just friends. Mom froze for a second, holding the serving spoon in midair. So all that time, I was holding on to something that didn't exist. I leaned back. But now, I'm seeing someone. Her name is Sophie. She owns a coffee shop. And with her, I actually know where I stand. Mom stayed quiet for a while, then finally smiled. Well, bring her over. The girl who has you looking this peaceful, that's the one I want to meet. That hit me harder than I expected. For 10 months, I needed validation. From my mom, my sister, my roommate, my friends, everybody. I needed people to confirm that whatever I had with Emily was real, as if that somehow made it real. With Sophie, I didn't need anyone's approval. It was real simply because it was real. And that was enough. Emily made one final attempt to get back inside my head. One night, she sent me a long text, saying she had realized a lot of things, that maybe she had treated me badly without realizing it, that she missed our friendship, our morning conversations, Sunday grocery shopping, that she felt like she had lost me. I read the entire message sitting on my couch. Sophie was asleep against my shoulder after an exhausting day at the cafe, and for the first time, I saw Emily's message for what it actually was, not an apology. Just another attempt to pull me back into the same place I had always occupied, available whenever she wanted me. I didn't answer that night. The next morning, I sent her exactly one sentence. I genuinely wish you the best, Emily. Take care of yourself. Then I archived the conversation. No blocking, no drama, no anger. I simply let go. I stared at my phone after sending it, waiting for the guilt, the knot in my stomach. The urge to delete the message and soften it somehow, nothing came. I made myself coffee, real coffee. The good kind, the kind Sophie had taught me how to make, then sat by the window, watching the sunrise over Austin. Half an hour later, Sophie woke up and found me sitting there holding the mug. She rubbed her eyes. "What's with that face?" I smiled. "No face. I'm just peaceful." She sat beside me and stole a sip from my coffee. "There you go again." "Peaceful," she smiled. "This is good. You're almost better than me now." I laughed softly. I had a good teacher. Outside, life kept moving. The friend group was still the friend group. The barbecues still happened, but Emily started showing up less and less. Nobody kicked her out. She left on her own, just like people always end up alone, when the only way they know how to feel good is being the center of everything. And honestly, I never even noticed the exact day I stopped caring whether she showed up or not. 8 months later, my life looked nothing like it did the night of Ryan's party. I quit my office job in February. It wasn't impulsive. Sophie and I spent weeks sitting down with spreadsheets, comparing my income with the coffee shop numbers. The new afternoon schedule had worked. The office workers across the street had become regular customers. Weekends were getting so busy we could barely keep up. Then a retail space opened up on the other side of the city. We combined my savings, the little money Sophie had managed to put aside, and a business loan we took out together, both our names on it, in March. We opened the second corner brew location. Now I handled operations. She handled the kitchen and the coffee side. We worked harder than ever, but it felt different because now it was ours. Before all that happened, back in January, I finally brought Sophie over to meet my mom. I had delayed it for weeks. Not because I was embarrassed, but because some part of me still kept expecting everything to fall apart, the way everything always used to fall apart whenever I let myself hope. But this time, it didn't. My mom opened the front door. The second she saw Sophie, she cupped her face with both hands and smiled. "So, you're the one who has my son looking this peaceful." Sophie didn't miss a beat. She smiled right back. "And you must be the woman who taught him how to be this stubborn." My mom burst out laughing. I honestly hadn't heard her laugh like that in years. The three of us ate together in the kitchen. Later, my sister showed up with her kids. And by the time coffee was served, Sophie was already arguing with my mother over who made better cinnamon coffee, debating beans, sugar, brewing temperatures, like they had known each other forever. And suddenly, I remembered Emily, sitting in that exact same kitchen months earlier, perfect posture, waiting to be served, letting my mother call her daughter-in-law without lifting a finger. Sophie had been in the house 30 minutes, and she was already washing dishes. As we were leaving, My mom quietly pulled me aside at the front door. She squeezed my arm tightly. "Don't let this one go." I smiled. I wasn't planning to. I only saw Emily one more time after that. It happened at the new cafe. Saturday morning. The place was packed. I was working the register. I looked up, and there she was, wearing a nice summer dress, sunglasses resting on top of her head, and strangely, I felt nothing. Not what I would have felt a year earlier. No knot in my stomach. No racing heartbeat. Just curiosity. Like seeing someone you used to know in another life. She stepped up to the register. "Hey," careful smile. "I didn't know this place was yours." I shrugged. "Ours. Me and Sophie." She nodded. "I heard from the group." I gave a polite smile. "Hey, Emily, what can I get you?" She froze for half a second, like she expected something different. Small talk, interest, maybe me asking about her life. Instead, I waited. Finally, she spoke. "One cappuccino," then quietly. "You look good. Seriously. Really good." I nodded. "Thanks. You too." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I've been thinking a lot about how everything ended." I stayed silent. She kept talking. "I don't think I ever properly apologized for the party, for a lot of things." She looked down. "Honestly, I didn't treat you well back then." I waited, expecting something. Anger, resentment, some desire to make her feel what I once felt. Or maybe the opposite. The old urge to reassure her, to make her feel better. But I felt neither. Nothing. So I answered honestly, "Don't worry about it." And I mean that. It's in the past. Then I smiled slightly. "Honestly, I should probably thank you." She frowned. "Thank me?" I nodded. "If that night you hadn't told everybody I was basically your brother, I'd probably still be waiting for you." I leaned against the counter. "I'd still be standing there, waiting for the day you finally decided I was enough." I looked directly at her. "You did me a huge favor, even if that wasn't your intention." She stayed quiet. For a second, I thought she'd respond with the same sharpness she always used to, but instead, she looked down and spoke softly. "You were always really good to me. Maybe I just didn't realize it in time. A year earlier, those words would have destroyed me. I would have searched for hidden meaning. Some sign, some open door, some proof that there was still hope. Now, it hit me like rain hitting a window, present, but unable to reach me. I smiled gently. "I was good to you because I thought that would make you love me." I paused. "It wasn't love, Emily. It was fear. Fear of being alone, and you knew that. That's why you kept me waiting for so long." She didn't deny it. She took a sip of her cappuccino, probably just to have something to do with her hands. Then she looked toward the kitchen, where Sophie's voice could be heard giving instructions to one of the employees. "So Sophie works here too?" I smiled. "She's my business partner." I paused. "And my wife. We got married 2 months ago. Small ceremony. Just us." Something crossed her face. Regret. Surprise. Maybe both. Didn't matter. She looked back at me. "Congratulations." Quiet voice. "Really?" I handed her the cappuccino. I'd made it myself. Perfect foam. Exactly the way Sophie taught me. "This one's on the house. Take care of yourself, Emily." She understood. That was goodbye. She picked up the cup, looked at me one last time. Probably searching for the insecure guy she once knew. The guy desperate for her approval. She didn't find him. Then she turned around and left. She never came back. A second later, Sophie leaned out from the kitchen, apron on, hair stuck to her forehead from the heat. That was her, wasn't it? I nodded. "Yeah." She wanted a cappuccino. "And?" I shrugged. I told her it was good. Sophie stared at me for a second, reading me the way she always did. Then she laughed. "All right, table 4 has been waiting 10 minutes. Less talking, more working, partner." I smiled and got back behind the register. The cafe stayed packed until late that evening, and when we finally closed, the two of us stood outside together, exhausted, smelling like coffee and fresh bread, and I froze for a second on the sidewalk, the exact same way I had that very first night, a year and a half earlier. I was the guy being introduced as a brother by a woman who refused to choose me. Today, I drive my own truck every morning to the second business I built with my own name on it, on the same avenue where I used to drag myself into an office job I hated. And I don't do it so anyone can see me. I do it because I finally know what I'm worth, and I don't need anyone else to approve it anymore.